You are listening to KiCKFLiP Radio.
What if I told you that the ultimate blueprint for understanding, like the modern internet, algorithmic outrage, and human psychology, isn't locked away in some peer-reviewed academic journal, but it's actually playing out every single afternoon at a middle school skate park?
It sounds crazy, but it's true.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever found yourself just scrolling through your social media feed, looking at the sheer volume of anger and synchronized opinions, and just wondered if anyone actually sees through the madness anymore?
I think we all have, honestly.
Well, today we are doing a deep dive into a remarkable stack of documents that strips all of this down to the studs. And our guide through this digital wasteland is, incredibly, a 13-year-old skater kid named Kippy Numbers.
Yeah, what we have here is ostensibly just a middle school homework assignment.
Just a standard assignment, right?
Kippy's social studies teacher, Mr. Jenkins, asked his class to write a standard 3-page report on digital citizenship.
Which usually means what, like, don't share your passwords?
Yeah, exactly. But Kippy did not write 3 pages on password safety.
No, he did not. He turned in a 27-page philosophical punk sociology manifesto alongside this highly stylized infographic he created called Break the Hive, and a screenshot of a specific social media post that he uses as like a psychological case study.
And it is such a fascinating artifact because it blends this raw, unedited angst of a teenager who just had way too many thoughts with a genuinely profound deconstruction of how humans behave in groups.
Totally. Let's start with the physical document itself because it's striking. We're looking at scans of his original printed copy, and it is just covered in handwritten margin notes.
On the very first page, he scribbled, "Sorry, Mr. Jenkins, I had thoughts." And thoughts is in all capital letters.
I love that. And further down, there's a note reading, "Sorry, this got long, lol."
Right. He was clearly compelled by something far beyond the constraints of a grading rubric. He was processing his own frustration with the social dynamics he sees every single day.
Both online and in person. And he even anticipates the teacher's critique on his methodology. In one margin, he writes, "Mr. Jenkins, you did say cite sources, and technically the skate park counts as field research."
Which is an incredibly astute defense, honestly.
It really is.
He is conducting participatory observation.
He writes in his own slang, he mixes deeply personal stories with high-level social critique, and he completely refuses to use that sanitized, performative language we usually associate with, professionalism.
He is questioning social pressure, distrusting herd mentality, and fundamentally rejecting the idea that people should act like socially optimized brands.
Wow, socially optimized brands.
Yeah, and the format of the report embodies the message.
Or is it just like the natural defiance of a 13-year-old testing boundaries?
It's a fair question.
Because it's easy to look at a note, there's one that's triple underlined that says, "Do not read this part out loud to class," and see a kid just being dramatic.
Sure, yeah.
But reading through the text, his frustration seems to stem from a deeper place. He's essentially asking, why is everyone pretending? Like, who decided this performative behavior is normal?
I think the intention might be a mix of both, teenage rebellion and genuine philosophical frustration.
That's fair.
But the outcome is a text that feels deeply anti-conformist.
So let's see how he builds that argument. Kippy organizes his observations into 24 specific concepts. He's essentially scaling up middle school lunchroom dynamics to explain the entire internet.
Right, starting with what he calls the microcosm of the hive.
Yeah, this first cluster of ideas focuses on social signaling, groupthink, tribalism, the bandwagon effect, and collective hive mind.
And his definition of social signaling is particularly sharp for a kid his age.
Oh, it's brilliant. He describes it as people publicly supporting a cause or attacking a target, not out of genuine conviction, but to show loyalty to a group.
Yeah.
He writes, "At school, this happens all the time. You'll hear kids suddenly caring super loudly about something they literally never talked about before. Yeah. Then you realize all their friends care about it too." He calls this social camouflage.
And Kippy recognizes that the driving force here isn't necessarily malice or, manipulation. It's a primal, desperate need to belong to the tribe.
Like survival instincts.
Precisely. From an evolutionary standpoint, human beings are wired to view social exclusion as a mortal threat. For our early ancestors, being exiled from the group literally meant starvation or death by predators.
Wow. Okay. So it's deep-rooted.
Exactly. We carry that neurological hardware into the modern world. So when Kippy sees kids in the cafeteria suddenly adopting the opinions of their peer group, he is observing a real-time survival mechanism. It's how you avoid becoming social prey.
That is so wild to think about. And, have you ever been sitting in a meeting at work, looking at a proposed strategy that you know is deeply flawed, but the CEO and the executives are all nodding enthusiastically? Do you speak up and risk being the outlier, or do you just nod along? That instinct to nod is exactly what Kippy is observing at the skate park.
Yeah, he gives a perfect example of this.
The older kid example.
Yes. One older kid with social capital says a particular skater sucks, and suddenly half the park starts acting like they always hated that skater.
Even if they were complimenting him 2 days ago.
Exactly. It's instant historical revisionism to appease the alpha.
It's so crazy. And that mechanism flows directly into his analysis of groupthink. He uses this really vivid metaphor to describe how unexamined group consensus operates.
The Jenga blocks.
Yes. He writes, one person says, hey, this person is bad. And instead of asking, wait, why? Everybody just starts stacking agreement on top of agreement like Jenga blocks made of peer pressure.
Which is such a good analogy because Jenga is inherently unstable.
Right. It's built on empty space.
Exactly. It's a tower built on friction and empty space. Eventually, if it gets too tall without a solid foundation, the whole thing just collapses.
And Kippy follows this by identifying what he calls NPC behavior.
Ah, NPC. Non-player character.
Exactly. The background characters in video games that just stand there and repeat the same programmed lines of dialogue. He applies this to people who repeat scripted opinions without independent thought.
Yeah, he says it feels like people download identical dialogue packs.
Yes. And if you ask them to explain their reasoning, the NPC script crashes.
Using video game terminology to describe a lack of critical engagement is a very, digital native approach to sociology.
It really is.
He's noticing that people aren't just agreeing with a concept, they are adopting the exact vocabulary, cadence, and talking points of their chosen group. It's a complete outsourcing of intellectual labor.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate for a second here. Let me challenge Kippy's disdain for this behavior.
Sure, go for it.
He mocks NPC behavior and clearly finds it frustrating, but isn't relying on group consensus sometimes just, necessary cognitive efficiency?
If my friends say a movie is bad, I probably won't watch it.
Exactly. Or, if your entire community says a certain berry is poisonous, you don't need to eat it to find out. You just trust the group.
Right.
The breakdown occurs when that necessary shortcut is weaponized.
Oh, weaponized.
Right. Kippy's critique seems aimed not at the shortcut itself, but at the hostility that accompanies it when curiosity is completely removed.
It's one thing to say, I haven't researched this deeply, but I trust my community's stance. It is another thing entirely to aggressively attack an outsider based on that borrowed opinion.
And then become defensive when asked a simple, clarifying question.
Exactly. The hostility combined with the ignorance is what sets him off.
He actually wrote a margin note about this. He wrote, peer pressure is cringe.
I love that. Peer pressure is cringe.
It's so true, though. It's the performance of certainty that bothers him. This reliance on the tribe might start as a cognitive shortcut, but Kippy maps out exactly how it turns toxic when it intersects with modern technology.
And that brings us to his exploration of the outrage economy.
Yes, Section 3.
He tackles social contagion, performative outrage, moral grandstanding, and algorithmic reinforcement. He realizes that anger is no longer just a private emotion, right? It is a currency that is technologically rewarded.
Wow. Technologically rewarded. He hits on a tragic reality of media consumption when he writes, you know what doesn't get tons of clicks? Balanced emotional maturity.
Which is spot on. And social media algorithms are designed to maximize engagement. Platform engineers realized early on that outrage is the most efficient way to keep users clicking, commenting, and staying on the platform.
The algorithm doesn't care about the quality of the discourse.
No, not at all. It only cares about the time spent on the page. Kippy calls this outrage social junk food. It provides a fast, emotional, addictive hit, but it rots the cognitive ecosystem over time.
And he illustrates how this plays out in the real world with the most visceral, hilarious analogy. He's explaining mob mentality, and he writes, it reminds me of seagulls stealing fries at the beach. One seagull notices food, then 30 more show up screaming.
That is such a perfect visual.
I know. I mean, next time you see an internet dog pile, try not to picture a flock of screaming seagulls descending on a single French fry. You can't unsee it.
Seriously. One squawks and the whole flock swarms, mostly just because they want in on the noise.
Yeah. And he pairs this with a really sharp critique of performative outrage. He points out that for many people, the goal isn't actually helping a cause. The goal is looking like a helper.
He uses this really specific example of someone filming themselves handing a sandwich to a homeless person.
Oh yeah, the camera angle thing.
Right, taking the time to ensure the camera angle is appropriately dramatic before actually handing over the food.
Gross.
He writes, once likes become social oxygen, people start performing morality instead of practicing kindness.
Performing morality instead of practicing kindness. That's brilliant.
It really cuts to the heart of algorithmic behavior modification. When likes function as social oxygen, a lack of engagement literally feels like suffocation.
Social oxygen. That phrase perfectly captures the dependency. Kippy actually includes a quote from a writer named Lisa Sage Valentino.
Oh, yes, I wanted to talk about that quote.
Yeah, she says, if the concern is truly about impact, then the focus has to match where the power actually is. Otherwise, it just turns into performative outrage aimed at easy targets.
Performative outrage naturally gravitates toward individuals because individuals are easy to hurt.
Right, you can't cancel a whole institution easily.
Exactly. You can publicly shame a single person and get immediate, tangible results. An apology, a firing, a deleted account. That provides a quick dopamine hit.
But doing the real work is slow.
Yes. Sustained effort against actual power structures, institutions, or complex policies is slow, boring, and doesn't yield immediate validation from the crowd.
But let's look at the chicken and egg scenario with the algorithm. Kippy argues that social media algorithms boost emotional content because emotional people stay online longer.
Right.
But is the algorithm actually changing human nature, or is it just holding up a mirror to it? Like, are we being manipulated by code, or is social media just revealing how much human beings genuinely love a public spectacle?
Well, it's a continuous feedback loop.
Yep.
Our brains prioritize negative information and threats over positive information.
Oh.
The algorithm detects this biological vulnerability and feeds it back to us at a scale and velocity that the human brain was never, ever designed to process.
Oh, wow. So it's exploiting our biology.
Yes. Kippy notes that the internet tricks people into thinking the whole world is furious, and constant exposure to algorithmic outrage fundamentally alters our baseline perception of reality.
It makes us paranoid.
Exactly. It makes us more defensive, more reactive, and more eager to strike first.
It's like we built the Colosseum.
Yeah.
And the algorithm just ensures the gates are always open and the lions are always hungry.
That is a dark but very accurate way to put it.
Yeah. And that constant state of artificial threat pushes people to do things online they would never do in person. Which brings us to the next section of the report, where the tone noticeably shifts.
It does get a lot heavier here.
Yeah, the sarcasm drops away, and Kippy gets into the very real psychological damage of these systems. In the margins, he actually wrote, "This part made me mad."
He's diving into dogpiling, cancel culture, black and white thinking, and dehumanization.
Yes. And his insight into the psychology of the dogpile is particularly sophisticated. He writes that even strong people crack eventually when hundreds of strangers target them.
But he zeroes in on the justification used by the people participating in the mob, which is fascinating.
Right.
He says, everybody thinks, well, I'm just one comment. Yeah. But thousands of one comments becomes psychological warfare.
Psychological warfare.
Yep.
It perfectly captures how normal, otherwise kind people convince themselves it's okay to participate in cruelty. Like, I'm just throwing one pebble.
Right. In psychology, this is known as the diffusion of responsibility, coupled with de-individuation.
De-individuation?
Yeah. When you are part of a massive crowd, your sense of personal accountability evaporates. You don't view yourself as the perpetrator of a massive attack. You view yourself as a tiny, inconsequential voice adding to a consensus. But the target of the dogpile doesn't experience one comment thousands of times. They experience a singular, overwhelming avalanche of hostility.
It's crushing. And Kippy points out that this is only possible because screens fundamentally block empathy.
Yes, the physical distance.
Right. He writes that people say things online they would never dream of saying to someone standing alone crying at a bus stop. Physical distance creates emotional distance.
When we speak to someone face to face and see their expression drop or hear their voice crack, our brain registers their distress and typically prompts us to soften our approach.
We back off.
Yes. Online, a profile picture does not trigger that same empathetic reflex. As Kippy notes, once someone becomes the target, they cease to be a multidimensional human being.
They become an avatar.
Right. They become a symbol of an ideology or a mistake or a cringe moment, which makes it incredibly easy to justify horrific behavior toward them.
Which leads right into what he calls black and white thinking. Kippy says, I've seen people at school completely redefine somebody's entire identity based on one rumor.
Just completely erased.
Right. One day a kid is fine, the next day they are entirely irredeemable. He argues this happens because recognizing nuance or remembering that people have layers and complex histories takes too much brain power for internet speed.
Internet speed, that's exactly it.
Context is the first casualty of the internet.
Because internet speed demands immediate categorization. Friend or foe, good or evil, pure or toxic.
But when he applies this to cancel culture, Kippy demonstrates a level of nuance that honestly many adults fail to reach.
He really does.
Because he explicitly states that terrible actions should have consequences. He isn't arguing for a world without accountability.
Right. He's not saying let everyone get away with everything.
Exactly. However, he recognizes that the current mechanism of internet cancellation completely skips the necessary human steps of context, growth, conversation, and rehabilitation.
He says it turns people into permanent villains.
Permanent villains. But why do people go along with this? Like, if we know deep down that stripping context away is unfair, and if we know we wouldn't scream at a crying person at a bus stop, why do we join the mob online?
That is the million-dollar question.
Kippy's answer is that it's rarely about actual righteousness. It's about fear.
Yes.
And he explores this in a section dedicated to the psychology of silence.
This is where Kippy moves from observing the aggressive behavior of the mob to analyzing the silent complicity of the bystanders.
Right.
He breaks down the fear of being outside the group, echo chambers, and crowd validation addiction. He argues that a significant portion of internet behavior is driven entirely by self-preservation.
He writes, I think this one secretly controls way more people than they want to admit. A lot of people aren't even defending ideas anymore. They're defending membership.
Defending membership. That sentence is the core thesis of tribal sociology. When your social standing, your friend group, or your professional network is tied to a specific set of beliefs, those beliefs are no longer just intellectual concepts. They are the rent you pay for social acceptance.
The rent you pay for social acceptance. Oh my gosh. Think about that for yourself. Have you ever typed out a comment or a reply in a group chat and then slowly backspaced over it because you realized it didn't completely align with the established vibe of the group?
Everyone has done that.
Kippy says, nobody wants to eat lunch alone. Nobody wants everybody whispering when they walk by.
Yeah, that fear is visceral in middle school, but it never really goes away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If the crowd decides someone is problematic, people are terrified the eye of Sauron might turn on them next. So they join the mob, or at the very least, they stay completely silent. And Kippy delivers this absolute gut punch of an observation. Sometimes silence isn't agreement. Sometimes silence is fear.
That perfectly encapsulates the spiral of silence theory.
The spiral of silence.
Yeah, developed by political scientist Elizabeth Noel Newman. The theory explains that when individuals believe their opinion is in the minority, they self-censor out of fear of isolation or reprisal.
Because they don't want to get targeted.
Exactly. And because they remain quiet, the aggressive, dominant opinion appears much more unanimous than it actually is.
Oh, so it creates an illusion of consensus.
Precisely. This false sense of consensus intimidates others into silence. It creates a completely warped perception of what the community actually believes.
Wow. And in his infographic, Kippy quotes Levi Rizzo, who says, y'all surround yourselves with people who share your ideologies and remove, block, etc. to those who don't. That's what's great about opposing dialogue. You may just learn something, or better yet, teach something.
Right. But when disagreement itself is treated as an existential threat, the environment just becomes an echo chamber.
And Kippy experienced the hypocrisy of this firsthand, which he details in a section titled, About That Ironic Post.
The Ivy Gojo incident.
He uses an image file titled Hypocrite as his primary case study for this behavior.
Let's describe it for the listeners. It's a screenshot of a social media post. The image is a piece of stencil street art showing a child looking up at a wall. And painted on the wall is the quote, "Anyone who goes against you without hearing your side of the story was already looking for a reason to be against you."
Right. It's one of those deeply cliche, inspirational quotes people post when they want to broadcast that they've been wronged.
Very performative.
But Kippy reveals that Ivy Gojo did exactly this to him.
Oh, the irony.
She absorbed a bunch of rumors and toxic gossip about him and completely turned against him without ever once asking for his side of the story. As Kippy puts it, she immediately absorbed the crowd narrative like downloading a social software update.
The total lack of self-awareness is staggering. I mean, she is publicly weaponizing a quote about the importance of hearing both sides while privately participating in the exact groupthink behavior she claims to be a victim of.
It's wild. But how does a 13-year-old process that level of hypocrisy? Like, does he start a flame war? Does he call her out publicly? But no. He says he didn't even get mad. He just found it hilarious in a sad human psychology way. So he simply went and liked the post.
He liked the post.
He writes, "Deep down, I wasn't liking the hypocrisy. I was liking the accidental truth hidden inside it."
Liking the post is an incredible display of philosophical detachment.
Seriously.
He recognizes that the statement on the wall is objectively true, regardless of the messenger's failure to embody it.
But this is what makes Kippy's report a genuine manifesto, rather than just an angry rant. Because he doesn't hold himself up as a flawless hero who operates above the fray.
No, he punches inward too.
Exactly. Right after breaking down Ivy's hypocrisy, he turns the microscope on his own brain. In a section on emotional hijacking, he admits that he falls into these traps too.
He's very honest about it.
He describes the physical sensation of being attacked online. He says, you feel misunderstood, your chest gets tight, your brain goes, defend yourself right now.
He is describing the physiological response of the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response.
Yeah.
By acknowledging that his own reasoning can be compromised by emotion, he maintains his intellectual credibility. He writes, all humans do that sometimes, including me. By implicating himself, it becomes profound self-awareness.
He even left a margin note that says, I think too much. He knows he is exhausted by all of this, but he doesn't end the report in a state of cynical despair. He dedicates the final section to a remarkably hopeful concept. He titles Section 6, Kindness is Hardcore.
Kindness is hardcore. That completely flips the traditional script on what constitutes rebellion.
How so?
Well, in a digital environment that financially and socially incentivizes cruelty, sarcasm, and outrage, choosing to be empathetic is an act of ultimate defiance.
Wow.
It requires immense strength to resist the gravitational pull of the dog pile.
It really does. And Kippy lays out a blueprint for how to break the hive. First, listen before reacting. Hearing both sides changes the context entirely.
Such a simple but rare step.
Second, stop rewarding cruelty. If the audience stops clapping for the digital gladiator match, the gladiators will eventually stop fighting.
Right. Starve the algorithm of its social oxygen.
Exactly. Third, ask questions. He writes, not knowing everything immediately is normal.
That part is huge. The pressure to have an instantaneous, fully formed opinion on every complex global event within minutes of it happening is a uniquely modern pathology.
Yes, the take economy.
Kippy is giving people permission to pause, to say, I need more information. That friction is the antidote to the algorithm.
His final piece of advice is about curating your physical reality. He says, I'd rather skate with good-hearted weirdos who think for themselves than angry trend followers who need crowds to tell them who to hate next.
I love that. Good-hearted weirdos.
Me too. He also notes in the margins, some people need hobbies, and the internet needs to be spanked and put in the corner.
So funny.
He is prioritizing authentic, messy human connection over optimized social branding. And clearly, his teachers saw the value in all of this.
We have to talk about Mr. Jenkins's notes.
Let's do it.
His handwritten notes throughout the report show a teacher who is genuinely engaged with the student's intellectual awakening. He writes, interesting observations, effective metaphor, and careful not to overgeneralize.
He's actually treating it like a serious piece of work.
He is. And he also writes, you are either going to become a writer or start a revolution.
I can only imagine what it was like having Kippy in class. He must be a handful, but in the best possible way.
Oh, for sure. And Mr. Jenkins gives him an A-.
We have to assume the minus is for completely ignoring the 3-page limit and the formatting guidelines, right?
Undoubtedly. He writes at the bottom, next time I assign a 3-page report, please do not turn in a 27-page philosophical autobiography. Needs more editing.
But look at the core advice Mr. Jenkins leaves for Kippy. He says, please never lose your ability to think independently, but remember that understanding people is more powerful than simply defeating them.
That is the perfect grounding statement for a kid who is just discovering his intellectual power.
It really is. It would be incredibly easy for Kippy to look at the NPCs and the seagulls and develop a superiority complex.
Right, to think he's the only awake person in a world of sheep.
Exactly. But Mr. Jenkins reminds him that compassion is harder than critique. The people in the mob aren't mindless monsters. They're scared humans trying to survive the social hierarchy.
Understanding their fear is more radical than just mocking their behavior.
Yes. It brings everything full circle back to Kippy's own realization that kindness is the ultimate hardcore stance. Mr. Jenkins validates Kippy's critique while gently guiding him away from the cynicism that often accompanies it.
It's beautiful, honestly.
It is. This 27-page epic by a 13-year-old skater manages to dismantle internet culture, algorithm mechanics, and the psychology of fear, all while defending the simplest human truth. Keep your soul intact. Don't trade your authenticity for the safety of the crowd.
Truly a punk manifesto.
So I want you, listening right now, to take that challenge with you today. Think about the spaces you inhabit, your workplace, your friend groups, your family text threads, or your social media timelines. The next time you find yourself quietly nodding along with the consensus or typing out an agreement just to go with the flow, ask yourself a hard question.
The really hard question.
Are you agreeing because you have genuinely examined the issue and formed your own conclusion? Or are you just terrified of eating lunch alone? What parts of your own messy, authentic identity are you suppressing right now just to pay the rent of social acceptance? Think for yourself. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to KiCKFLiP Radio.